Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today for our webinar, How to Determine Your Next Best Fundraising Event, in person, virtual, or hybrid. The world is finally reopening, and I'm sure many of you are wondering what that means for your fall fundraising events. Should you abandon your virtual methods of the last year and jump exclusively back into in person events? Would continuing virtual events or adding hybrid elements to your in person fundraisers still benefit your nonprofits? Our special guest today will be answering all of these questions and more. Plus, our resident fundraising expert will walk us through the tools and strategies to maximize your event's success, no matter the type you choose. Now, before we get started, please know we welcome your participation and are here to answer your questions. So be sure to submit them into the questions box on the GoToWebinar control panel. We have fundraising experts standing by behind the scenes to answer questions both during the webinar and at the end when we will hold an open Q&A session with our presenters. We hope you will be inspired and motivated by today's presentation. And as a quick reminder, we will be sending out the recording and slides to all of our registrants afterwards. Now, today's webinar is presented by MobileCause, and MobileCause understands the everyday challenges nonprofits face, constantly confronted with limited resources, yet still expected to expand your impact. You shouldn't have to face these challenges alone, and that's why MobileCause offers more than comprehensive online and event fundraising software. We also provide one-on-one strategy from dedicated fundraising specialists and have the industry's best support team ready to provide assistance 24/7. So it's there when you need it most. MobileCause has become the trusted fundraising partner for nonprofits looking to scale their fundraising quickly and efficiently without paying any transaction fees. At MobileCause, we're just as committed to your cause as you are, and together we can grow your nonprofit like never before. Now, let me introduce you to today's experts. Danielle Snelson has been, planning corporate and nonprofit events since 2007, helping nonprofits benefit from corporate event revenue generating systems and applying them to their own fundraisers for wildly profitable events. Danielle currently produces virtual events with her company Sona Productions for corporate and nonprofit organizations. She is the author of the Profitable Nonprofit Event ebook, a guide to the essential event fundraising, and is the creator of the Profitable Nonprofit Event e-course, helping nonprofits rule their fundraisers with ridiculously profitable events. Danielle resides in Boise, Idaho, with her husband Jedediah and their daughter Joey, and loves traveling and the outdoors. Sarah Baker is a senior digital fundraising strategist for MobileCause with a proven track record of helping nonprofits meet their financial goals while amplifying their reach within their communities. She is responsible for creating and managing powerful fundraising campaigns guided by her expertise in social media, online fundraising, strategic planning, marketing strategy, cross channel communications, donor relations, and more. Sarah's work has enabled hundreds of MobileCause customers to successfully accelerate and increase their fundraising and engagement efforts. Now, I'm Scott Couchman, I'm the training manager at MobileCause, and today's agenda is an important one for helping to navigate the new landscape of fundraising events. We'll share insider strategies for determining the right event for you and plenty of practical tips and tools for any type of fundraiser. Now, first, we'll hear from Danielle on all the pros and cons of your event options and how to choose the right one for you. And then we'll do a deep dive into the essentials for supercharging your event's success. All right, before we begin discussing how to determine your next best fundraising event, in person, virtual, or hybrid, we do have a quick poll question for everyone. So let me go ahead and launch this poll. And this usually takes a couple of seconds to go, but so I'll go ahead and read it off here for you. So the question is, what are your upcoming plans for hosting a fall fundraising event? And the choices are: have a virtual event in the works, you are going back to in-person events, you'll be hosting a hybrid event, still figuring out our strategy, and no plans yet. So let's see what those answers are. All right, getting some good answers here. All right, give it a few more seconds here. Let those last minute voters come in. All right, we'll go ahead and close up this poll here, and let's see what we have. All right, let's take a look at those results. So it is kind of interesting. A little surprised to see the responses here, where a good portion of you are still trying to figure it out. So, but I'm not necessarily surprised about those going back to that in-person event. We've seen a lot of that happening, so it's nice to see where people are with this. So no matter what your fall fundraising event plans may be, today's webinar is here to provide you with some great ideas, tools, and tips that you can use now or in the future. And as a reminder, we will be sending the recording to all our attendees. So let's go ahead and dive in, shall we? So join me in welcoming Danielle Snelson to start us off by talking about your fundraising event options. Let me give you control, Danielle. And you should have control, so over to you.
Awesome. Hello, everyone. Maybe Scott, you can just let me know that you can hear me, and everybody, we're good to go on sound. So thank you so much for having me, MobileCause team. I'm so happy to be here, and thank you so much for the kind introduction. Now, I am so excited to talk to you all about what to do with your fundraising event. I've been doing fundraising events for a very long time now, and when it comes to virtual events, I've only been doing that for about 13 months. So I know it's new for everybody, but we had such a great time planning, producing, hosting virtual events. And we learned through our 2020 virtual event pivot.
Danielle, you're cutting in and out here. I'm not sure if it's tied into controlling the slides. It seems to be tied
All
to
right.
that.
Can you
So
hear me now?
yeah, I can hear you. So tell you what, let me
It looks
just tell me when to move the slides. We'll just take that off just for safety, and hopefully that'll
okay,
help with
great.
it.
It looks like it muted me when I did that.
Okay.
Okay. So this is our actual virtual event studio, and this studio did not exist before 2020. This is in our audiovisual warehouse studio, and so we were able to transform and convert a warehouse space into this really fantastic, amazing studio that we can broadcast programming to the entire world. And that was something that I think a big takeaway with 2020 was when we went virtual, our audience grew. And while that might apply to a lot of nonprofits, it doesn't necessarily apply to all nonprofits. So we started looking at this as far as that learning experience and expanding our audience, not just within our own communities, but expanding what our work does into our state, surrounding states, into the country, and into the world. And so being able to go virtual allowed us to do this in a capacity that we never really thought about before. And so I think that's such a cool aspect to continue to move forward with virtual. Now, another lesson learned from fundraising in 2020 is we have to be so in tune with being digital. Whether you host a virtual event or go back to in-person or hybrid, whatever that looks like, our world is digital. And so I think we saw a lot of, organizations just not have the right strategies when it comes to their digital marketing as well as digital fundraising. There was a lot of sticky points when we're sending out communication, how we send out communication, how we send up follow-up communication, how we do that in a digital space with email, social media, YouTube. and then how that translates into giving. If our giving is sticky, we're not going to make much online. But we have been seeing how our older generations adapted real quick to how to give online. And if that becomes sticky, then we have to make that really streamlined and functional for our donors, whether they're at home or across the world, giving to our organizations. And that was something, a big learning lesson, to make sure that the communication and giving was very streamlined. So again, if you're moving into any sort of fundraising efforts, making sure that those two things are going to carry you through to your donors. And that was a really great learning lesson. Now, one of the other things that we learned with 2020 is we created a lot of digital content. So everything from mission videos to welcome statements from our CEOs and executive directors, as well as being able to hear testimonials from people who are using our nonprofit clients' services. And what that did for our events and how it translates beyond a virtual event is, again, getting into the digital space and helping, whether they're new donors, existing donors, or anywhere in between, if they're just finding you or they've been with you for a long time, it's really, really, really important to be sharing those stories beyond a physical event. We want to be sharing these stories more often than we ever did in the past. And we have so much accessibility, even just through an iPhone, to really capture the essence of your nonprofit, your organization, and to really, truly tell your story outside of the four walls of your office space or outside the four walls of a ballroom. And so that experience through going through the virtual pivot really allowed us to think past what we've been doing in the past and what it looks like to now move forward into 2021 and beyond when it comes to fundraising and using our events. So if you're here on this webinar and you're like, yeah, we're done with that virtual, take a look at some of the different components that virtual gave to us and think about applying that into not just an event, maybe an in-person event, but how do you carry that presence in a digital space moving forward, whether it's through an event or looking for future donors. We'll go next slide. So those are my lessons learned from 2020. I know there were so many more lessons learned, but I think those are our biggest takeaways. Now, I want to talk about moving into in-person fundraising events. Now in our world, we have a comparison. We have virtual fundraising events, and now we have in-person fundraising events. And and I want to talk about what that looks like as you begin to consider what your options are for fundraising events. Let's talk about in-person events. Okay, these are those tried and true. We've done this for 20 years. We kind of have we've always done it this way mentality when it comes to traditional fundraising events, and people love them. We know that people buy tickets, they want to support our causes, they want to have a great time and a great experience. And so we want to keep that. We want to keep that excitement for your donors and your guests who look forward to attending your in-person fundraising events. And these are really great events to have if you are a community-based nonprofit, if you're working within kind of your core community, like your city or your town. If having in-person events, you should keep doing that, right? But here's really the truth. Now that we have virtual events, in-person event fundraising is very expensive. It's time consuming. It requires a lot of resources. It requires a lot of volunteers. It requires a lot of time from your team. And if you're a small nonprofit and say you're running either just by yourself or with a very small team, you all know how much work goes into having a successful fundraising event. And so we want to start to consider, what is our ROI on hosting in-person versus virtual or hybrid, and what does that look like? And from our past experiences with in-person fundraising events, sometimes we put in all that effort and we don't necessarily have the ROI that we were expecting on the back end. And that's just kind of the reality of planning without the right strategies. However, in-person fundraising events move beyond just fundraising and the money, right? We want marketing opportunities for our organization. We want to expand the community. So if we've had the 200 people that consistently attend, they're capable of bringing 9 other friends or 5 other friends or even just another couple. And that is a really great way to get our organization out into the community past our current donors, and it's a way to expand that connection. It's also a really great way to network. We want to bring in potential sponsors, bigger donors. That will help with our additional fundraising capacity efforts. So we want to build those relationships with the corporations in town. We want to invite the right people to these events. And so they're not only just to be fundraising, obviously that is a big goal when hosting our in-person fundraising events, but we also want to look past that. These in-person fundraising events are also really great for us to expand our mission, grow our relationships, and build community. And so, of course, those are all the reasons why we love our in-person fundraising events. But of course, there's only so many seats. And so there's only so many seats, and we know that the cost of hosting in-person events are very expensive. Go next slide. We're going to move right into talking about virtual events. And I'm sure many of you had the opportunity to have and host a virtual fundraising event. And if you have any questions about that, please pop them in the chat because we're going to talk about that at the end of today's webinar. But here's what we love about virtual fundraising events. It increases your reach outside of your local community. Okay, so if we're talking about anything that we want to grow and expand our cause to the neighboring town or state, like I said earlier, virtual events are really going to help propel that. Virtual events also helps enable us to market to a new demographic. Okay, so as we continue to do virtual events, we're going to have people registering who might not know us. And through the virtual event, now we're collecting new data. We're getting email addresses. We're getting new information about where these people are connecting with us and how they're connecting with us and how they're finding us. And so that's a really important piece of information and data for us to know and understand. And this allows people to tune in from wherever they are and pay attention and can still continue to connect with our organizations. The other thing that we found about virtual fundraising events, and maybe many of you found this to be a challenge at the beginning. I had a lot of clients, they said, oh man, all of our big donors, they're 70 plus, they're just not gonna get on their phones and give. And I will tell you that all of our groups that had that fear, at the end, they go, wow, we were just so amazed and impressed that our 70 plus year old donors wanted to support us in a way and so bad that they figured out how to use the phone and give. And when you use the streamlined systems like Mobilecause to accept payment and donations, it makes it really easy for any generation to get in, donate, pay attention, connect, and give wherever they are located. The biggest thing that I love about virtual events too is the cost factor. We had over the last year, our clients came back to us saying we've raised way more money with our virtual events, but in addition to that, they net so much more than they did on their physical events because the overhead to host and have a virtual event was so much greater. So the ROI for them really, I think, surprised a lot of people at how efficient hosting a virtual fundraising event was. And the other thing about virtual events, and I kind of hit on this earlier, is creating content that can be repurposed. We created so much content for organizations that did not have a mission video. They did not have testimonial videos. They did not have visual content prior to, because they never had to create it for their live in-person events. And so this virtual event allowed them the opportunity to produce these this content that they would have never had otherwise. And so it was just a really great experience for them. And then here's what happened. They took that content and they sent it out to their email list. These were people who did not attend their virtual event, but they sent it out to their email list. They posted it on YouTube and they started to build a new presence in the digital space. So when people find them, they were able to hop right in and understand at a much faster pace what their organization does, how they do it, and they were able to connect so much faster than they were in the past. And so these were all of the really great truths about virtual fundraising event that really helped us enhance the online experience. And I think there's so many things that I love about virtual, and we could probably talk about this for a long time, but one of the great things about our virtual studio is that we were able to interact with people in a way that we've never been able to interact with people at live events in the past. We have the ability to be able to talk through chat. We have the ability to use Zoom and any other sort of like video communication to actually have a conversation with somebody and talk to an executive director, talk to somebody who's delivering a testimonial in real time. And those are really amazing opportunities for us to be able to have those conversations in front of our audience because we have captivated them for 45 minutes online. And some of the other fun activities we were able to do in a virtual setting is what I think one of our favorite takeaways was being able to have virtual at-home scavenger hunts, and we would give out raffle prizes and all sorts of fun things for the person who was able to come back with a banana the fastest, and we saw them on our Zoom wall, and we're able to just have a fun laugh. It was interactive, engaging, and for many events, they were family friendly. And so the kids got to participate and be involved with the organization when they most likely would not be attending a live event. So those are all of my really great reasons why I love virtual fundraising events and things to consider as we move forward to continue to use throughout our annual marketing plans and fundraising events. Okay, next slide. All right, so we're going to move right into hybrid. So I've been able to describe, we all are very familiar with traditional in-person fundraising events, and we all became very familiar with the virtual event. Now, what does a hybrid event look like? Because when we start to combine these two components, it really changes and shifts what our physical event looks like. So, when we think about hybrid, we go, okay, cool, we're gonna host our in-person event. We're gonna do it like we used to do. This time, we're gonna bring a camera, and everything that happens on stage, we're gonna send it, to the folks at home. Well, I want you to really think about what that looks like. Okay, so when we talk about physical events, in-person traditional events, we're creating a very special experience for them. We want them from the moment they walk in the door to the moment that they leave to go, wow, I had a really great time. I learned a lot. I love this organization. I feel good. We want them to have all of those feelings. Well, the same exists in a virtual setting. We produce made for TV fundraising events. And so that's why we want to think about what is somebody's experience at home, right? So we're going to send them a box in the mail before leading up to the virtual events, right? Because we want them to get excited about it. And then we want to communicate. We want them to know exactly how to log in, where to find us online, how to participate. These are all part of the virtual event experience, right? And then when we have our actual virtual event, everybody's tuned in. We want from the moment our show starts to the moment it ends, people to go, wow, I'm so happy that I sat through this and I watched this. I learned a lot. I love that we're doing this and I'm supporting this cause, right? So we have a very intentional virtual event experience. So when we move into hybrid, we have to consider those two experiences as their own. Okay, so just bringing a camera and live streaming what happens on stage is not necessarily going to hit that at-home virtual event experience like we were doing if we're just having a virtual event. So we need to be considerate of the people who are attending our event. Now, if you happen to have an organization where you work specifically within a community, but then you also have a broader audience, so you're like, hybrid just makes sense for us because we're statewide, but we live in the capital and we just have a lot of attendees coming and showing up that we can host a live event, but we need to broadcast to the other part of the state, which, maybe they'd have to drive 8 hours to attend that event. Hybrid makes a lot of sense in this case, right? But we want to make sure that people who are showing up get the same experience, or not the same experience, but a really high quality experience. And our people at home watching are also going to get that really high quality experience. So I like to explain hybrid because hybrid events have been happening for a long time. We think about, the music awards and the Grammys and all of those different award shows that we watch at home because we aren't there in person. But what do they do? How do they make that experience for us as watchers and viewers at home just as captivating as or similar to the experience that somebody might be having in person, right? So what they're doing is creating and crafting a made-for-TV event for people at home, and the experience is made for people who are watching. And so we have to think about that in the same way when we're hosting and thinking about having a hybrid fundraising event. How do we continue to have two separate experiences simultaneously? Okay, so let's go to the next slide, and we're going to talk about how, now that we've talked about in-person events, virtual events, and hybrid events, and you're going, okay, all of this is making sense, but now I don't really know how to go about this, or what am I supposed to do? Should I have a hybrid event? Well, here are the questions that I want you to start considering amongst yourself, with your team, with your committees. What are your goals? I 100% do not want people having hybrid events because it's the next cool thing to do and then poorly execute and then go, oh, that hybrid event didn't work for us. Okay, if we're just doing it because it's the next thing and we think that's what we're supposed to be doing, that's not going to pan out well for us. Okay, so here we want to talk about goals. What is your goal? Is your goal to expand your reach? Is your goal to raise more money? Is your goal to appeal to a younger audience or appeal to families? Virtual events were highly successful for families and the younger generations. So do we really want to push them back into essentially traditional events that our older generations love and know? Or do we really want to have two separate experiences for different demographics and appeal to our audiences? So it's really important to evaluate what your goals are. What's most important for you to achieve? And when you think about your marketing reach, where are you going with your organization? And then I think a really, really important question here is, what resources and support do you have? Because if you're considering a hybrid event, you're going to need to partner with people who are going to help you achieve success simultaneously in person and virtually. Okay, now when we think about a hybrid, our costs, I've seen right now what's happening is the cost for a hybrid event, in order to do it correctly, the cost for your audiovisual is increasing a quarter to a half more than what you would normally have at an in-person, because you're going to need so much more support, so many more techs to run your equipment. And you're also probably going to need some sort of virtual event producer in order to make sure that, you're playing commercials, you have your mission video. Now we're going back to the stage and we want to hear our executive director speak. And now, if there's any sort of downtime, we have to account for that with our graphics, with our visuals, with our commercials, things like that. We also want to support all of our other initiatives, things like sponsor recognition and opportunities for them in person and virtually. So those are a lot of questions to start asking yourself about why I'm considering hybrid. Now, the other thought process behind evaluating what event options are going to work for you is, perhaps we go into fall going, you know what, we're going to go back to in-person. We just want to focus on having an in-person event, and essentially do things the way that we did to get back to normal, right? But consider maybe instead of doing hybrid, then maybe in the spring, offer a virtual event. So if you have two different demographics in your audience, people who want the virtual to move forward, that they're not going to come to the live events, why not start considering having your traditional in-person event this fall? And then come springtime, we gear up and we are able to focus primarily on hosting a virtual event. Now that's an option. Instead of doing a hybrid, doing it all at once where it's extremely overwhelming, it's more expensive, requires more staff and time and people to make that experience happen. Maybe we could consider two different options and having two different events throughout the year. Okay, next slide. All right, so these are all of the different components that I would love for you to consider as you are moving forward into the fall and what your event strategy might look like. So we just talked about maybe your strategy should include maybe more than one event. We're seeing it's just requiring a lot of time, energy, and resources to do a hybrid correctly. That this idea of like, okay, I'm going to do my live event, we're going to focus on that, and we're going to do a really great job at that. And then we're going to move in and shift into virtual. We're going to produce our content. We're going to, send out the boxes, get the registrations, do the communication, and we're going to do that really, really well. And here's the thing, you're appealing to different audiences. And what I would encourage you to do is actually survey your audience. What do they like? Do they like the hybrid or the virtual event experience? Do they want to do that again? We're hearing a lot of, like I said earlier, younger people and families, they said, we love this virtual option and we're happy to give and support and connect with our audience, but this just works better for our family. And so we don't want to bypass that, but that might also not be your audience. So survey your audience and figure out what it is that they like. If you're finding yourself in a 50-50 split, I might consider, having this option as well. And again, you're targeting different audiences. You're not expecting the same person to come to your live event and then show up for your virtual event. So that's something to keep in mind. So, I just want, as you consider whatever option is best for your nonprofit, just setting yourself up for success. Don't throw yourself into a situation because you feel like you have to and then poorly execute. There's so many different options, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have at the end of our webinar today about your virtual fundraising event or hybrid fundraising event. I tried to cover as much as possible, but we are essentially out of time on talking about this portion of the webinar. And so please, I'll be here at the end. Ask me your questions, and back to you, Scott.
All right, thank you, Danielle, for sharing such great insight into the different fundraising event options and how to choose the right one. Now, as a quick reminder, if you have any questions, you can submit them into the question box on your control panel as we go along, and we'll be sending the recording to attendees within the next 24 hours. And now let's hear from Sarah Baker with MobileCause on the 7 tools and strategies to maximize the success of any type of event. Let me see if I can give you control here, Sarah. All right, and over to you.
Thank you, Scott, and thank you, Danielle. So I wanted to talk to you guys today about some of the tools and strategies that you'll be able to use no matter the kind of event that you choose. So whether you continue moving forward with virtual and hybrid events, or you switch back to in-person events, or some kind of combination of both, all of these tools are things you're going to use no matter what. So one of the first things that you're going to want to have for your event is an event page. So an event page is basically a microsite that is focused solely on your event, whether that's a gala or a bowl-a-thon or a 5K. So your event page is going to be basically the hub of your event. So where all the information about your event can be found. So any important dates, times, how to participate, whether that's purchasing a ticket or registering for a virtual event or finding, information for a Zoom. Everything should be housed in one convenient location. This is also a great place to add some of the components that Danielle talked about earlier. So things like your mission statement. You can have that written out in text, or if during the last year you created a short mission video, you can add your video to the event page. In particular, when you're having virtual and hybrid events, the event page is also, of course, one of the great places to hold that video. Adding the video to your event page also is going to help you essentially usually raise more money by having that video available for people to replay or to view again. So if you did hold a virtual or in-person event that was recorded and you put that video up on your event page, anyone who is unable to attend during the event can go on and watch it in their own time, where they may be encouraged and motivated to donate, especially if they see your progress bar on the event page, see you're really close to your goal, and decide to donate even if they missed it during the time that you had the actual event. So again, everything associated with the event should be on your event page. The option to donate, the option to sign up, the option to sponsor, information about your organization. It's not taking over for your website, but you want to give people an overview. So if someone's coming to your event page, having heard about your event, but not being super familiar with your nonprofit, you want to be sure to give them a high-level overview on this page. So related to the event, again, whether you're doing an in-person, hybrid, or virtual event, event registration is going to be a critical tool to have. So the important reason you want to have some kind of registration, even if your event is virtual, even if it's free, is so that you can collect information from your donors and supporters. Collecting this information, of course, is very important to add to your email list, add to your text message list, and to get a better idea of who your audience is. So when you collect their event, when you collect their information for your event, you are able to do things like automate a receipt that comes after. So that receipt can have the information repeated from your event, maybe links back to your website or to a YouTube video that tells them a little bit more about you. So you can continue to nurture your relationship with your event guests. This also will allow you, again, to collect information about your audience, so you can kind of see who is interested in your virtual events. Are people attending from out of state, or are you getting a lot of people locally that might be interested in coming to an in-person event later on in the year? You can see in our example on the left that there's a question box. So you can collect additional information that can be used during the event or just in general to learn more about your supporters. Our event registration also enables you to do some contactless check-in. So as we're still transitioning out of the pandemic, you can add in ways to make people feel safer and more comfortable, while also tracking the attendance of your event and seeing who attended, whether it's virtually or in person. So of course, one of the most important things that you're going to focus on for your fundraising event is fundraising. So as part of our event page, we want to have an option for people to donate. And whether it's in person or virtual, you want to make that contactless and safe. So online and mobile giving are, of course, something you're probably super familiar with and you're already doing. You want to make sure that people can donate however they want to. So whether that's paying with their credit card or using PayPal or Apple Pay, whatever is going to make it quick and easy and not very time consuming or involving a lot of thought. So you can create a branded event aligned keyword and shortcode like you see over here on the left side of this screen. So during this example, we have a video where you see Miss Dolly Parton, and there's the option to donate with the text to donate keyword. In this case, it's Kenny Cares to 41444. So that allows your donors to quickly text in and make a donation. which works, again, whether you're doing virtual, in-person, or hybrid events. These keywords and short codes can be, read aloud during any videos that you're recording or during your in-person event from the stage. Your MC and speaker can say these and repeat them throughout to make sure everybody hears it and gets the chance. A lot of the in-person events that I attended in years past, the text to donate keyword was often promoted on a table tent on the table so that you can, as you're entering the gala or getting ready for the dinner, even before the ask, you have, the big ask from the stage, you have the opportunity to donate so that you can do it quickly and easily without thinking about it. We've seen the average is $97 with the text to donate gift, and this can obviously be much higher or lower depending on your audience. But again, it's a really great tool just to make sure that people don't have to, reach into their purse for their checkbook or make sure that they have cash or fill out, a little slip with a pen if they don't have a pen. Just makes it easy. The other thing that the text to donate will allow you to do, besides obviously collecting donations, is going to be collecting more contact information. So while we highly encourage event registration, you might have some guests at your event or watching your virtual event who did not register. So if they did not register and you didn't collect their information at that point in the event, you're going to be able to collect it when they text in and complete their donation. And even if they just text in and opt not to complete their donation, you've at least collected their phone number to begin text messaging them and, again, nurturing that relationship to hopefully convert them into a donor later on. Or if they did donate, to continue to nurture them as a donor to become a recurring donor and inform them about your future events and the rest of the work that your nonprofit's doing throughout the year. So sponsorships. So one of the big ways most of my nonprofits fundraise for their event is through these large sponsorships. So working with local businesses and individuals in their community who, are aligned with your mission and of course want to also benefit a little bit from being associated with your nonprofit and the event. So the nice thing with having your sponsorship online is it's really convenient to share out. You don't have to have a bunch of folders printed. You don't have to necessarily give out a business card. You can give out the link to your event page or the text keyword to get to your event page. So whether you're just having a casual conversation with a local cafe owner or you're emailing with somebody, you can very easily share with them all of your sponsorship packages, the benefits, all the details that they need to know, which most importantly is usually what they're going to get out of the event. During the past year, I've had a lot of people, having to pivot to virtual events, being unsure if businesses would want to sponsor their event when it's virtually. Are they getting less benefit or promotions? But there's a lot of ways still to encourage businesses to still sponsor you, and the types of things that you can do for them, can be having their logo up on your event page, linking out to their website, mentioning them multiple times during the video. If you are sending out boxes or giving away any swag at the event, it can be from that business or branded with that business's information, or a bag with their flyer, coupon, anything like that that you can do to shout out your sponsors and to get them more attention is going to be good. And I really do think that your local businesses and your community, they want to be associated with your nonprofit. It's going to make them look better, not only to their customers, but to their employees and just to the world at large by being such a big supporter of a reputable nonprofit. We've seen it really does make them feel like their brand is also enhanced by working together with your brand. Okay. So the next tool is again related back to text messaging. So we talked earlier about collecting phone numbers at registration. And when you collect phone numbers through guests registering or purchasing tickets for your event, this adds a new channel for you to communicate with them. So if you did not have their number before, now you do, and you can segment the list into, people who've registered for your event. If you have different ticket levels, VIP in general, you can segment these groups of phone numbers and groups of guests and send them important text information. So that can be information about your event, whether that's the link to the Zoom, if you're hosting a virtual event, a link to directions, reminding them about, the time that a speaker is going to go on, or even just getting them hyped up for the event. So maybe sending out, links to little YouTube teaser videos, links to your social media where they can interact with other people who are going to the event ahead of time. I know for me, text is one of the #1 ways I communicate and interact with both businesses and nonprofits. Easily getting and checking a text on my Apple Watch when I don't even have my phone. But definitely I relate to this stat saying that Americans are checking their phone 262 times a day. So it's a really great way to communicate directly without getting lost in a cluttered email inbox or getting filtered into spam. Text is definitely more direct. The text messaging option also has a nice aspect of adding a contact list way to get information at an in-person event. So instead of printing out hundreds of brochures, having a text keyword that people can text into to get the schedule of events or text into for something fun at your in-person event. So maybe texting in for a drink coupon or texting in to, participate in a raffle. Or if you're going to have an online auction, texting in to get the link to your auction. It just opens up a wide opportunity for you to, really minimize some of those costs we talked about earlier, again, by not having to print things. And once again, allowing you to collect information from all of your guests, including people who are not registered or the spouses of registrants, so that you can continue to build out your database of contacts to nurture throughout the year and throughout their lifespan of interacting with your nonprofit. So another super fun way to increase donations for your event is using peer-to-peer fundraising. So this is something I saw a lot over the past, year and a half or so now, is incorporating peer-to-peer fundraising with big events. So in the past, we had a lot of people use peer-to-peer fundraising for things like table hosts. So if I was hosting a table, I could use my peer-to-peer fundraising page to help sell tickets to the event that's in person, as well as to collect donations ahead of time. So if I was hosting a table and I had 10 seats, I could sell my 10 tickets, but also raise money from my other friends and family, across the country and around the world who might not be interested or, available to purchase a ticket for my event, but they might want to still donate and help me. With virtual events, the pivot we saw for table hosts is, again, almost the same exact thing. It's just you're registering for a virtual event instead of buying a ticket for an in-person event, still collecting money, but also hosting watch parties. So in communities where people are still gathering in smaller groups or still not as comfortable going out, but maybe interested in going over to their friend's house, you can have an in-person watch party of your virtual/hybrid event, or if it was a completely virtual event, having a watch party for that. We've also seen, of course, table hosts, instead of table hosts, we have your board or sponsors wanting to participate and fundraise ahead of time. With universities, I've seen different challenges. So things like different class years or decades, the 60s, 70s, and 80s, fundraising using the peer-to-peer as part of an event, whether that's, for a university or any higher education, that could be like a day of giving. Or the example here, this is Advocates for Children, one of my favorites, and they have done a lot of voting with peer-to-peer fundraising. So the example here, they had chefs that were participating and helping their event. And if you can see from the date, this is one that had to pivot quickly to a virtual event, but the original intent was having the chefs in person, and you would, vote for the food at the event, but instead, voting by making a donation. So each dollar you vote for this chef, goes towards the cause overall, but also counts as a vote for your favorite chef. And we've seen this for a variety of things. So things like Dancing with the Stars, or a pet shelter having people vote for their favorite cute kitty, for example. And adding the peer-to-peer fundraising, again, is just a really great way to get new donors to your organization, because a lot of times your donors are people who are supporting kind of that individual who's fundraising for you, whether that's a board member or something like this where it's a chef, maybe it's their fans or their family and friends who might not have heard about your organization until they make that initial donation in support of that individual fundraiser. But now you've collected that information from them, like their email and phone number, to begin a relationship and educate them about your nonprofit. And then the last tool that I wanted to mention was hosting online auctions. So if your in-person event, you've done a lot of live auctions, this is probably something you're familiar with. But hosting an online auction allows people to register ahead of time for the auction, as well as people to participate who are not in person, whether that's because your event's virtual or because they can't attend. It makes it easy for them to bid. You don't have to have, people raising their hands up and having everyone run around trying to get over to the bidder to collect their credit card information. Everything can be done a lot more seamlessly on their phone or their computer or their iPad. Online auctions also allow you, again, instead of running over them and trying to find the winner or contacting and chasing them down after, hosting it online means there's notices sent out later. And, having an online auction too allows you to keep it open a little bit longer. So instead of having your auction only open for like the 2 or 3 hours of your live event, it can be open for 2 weeks, which can, help increase visibility, give it a little bit more time, and ultimately hopefully help increase participation and raise more money by having it open for a little bit longer than a couple hours. And the great thing about this is too, you can have photos of the auction items, descriptions, so that people can peruse them at their leisure. You don't have to have everything at the actual event. You can send things out later, so it can be a little bit more manageable and hopefully a little bit less stress during your actual event by putting it all online. And just, to circle back to the beginning with our event page, you just link to your online auction from the event page so that people can participate in your event however they are comfortable and ready, and however works for them, whether that's making a quick donation, signing up or buying a ticket to your event, joining the auction, or even if it's just reading a little bit of information about you, clicking out to your social media channels and clicking follow there. That's still such an important relationship and such an important, aspect of running your nonprofit. So yeah, I hope everything that you saw today was super helpful for you, and all these tools are, very easy for you to use. And I'm happy to answer any questions, and I think we already have some coming in. So I'll hand it back over to Scott.
All right, thank you, Sarah and Danielle, for sharing your expertise with us today. I know these strategies and tools are going to help a lot of nonprofits run their own successful fundraising event, whether it's in person, virtual, or hybrid. We hope you're all looking forward to trying out some of these ideas in your own upcoming events. Now, if you are looking for some extra help and support planning your upcoming fundraising event, we have something special for you. MobileCause has a special offer to receive additional campaign support, free from a digital fundraising strategist like Sarah. Request a MobileCause consultation and we'll give you more information on our July offer. Okay, so before we jump into our Q&A, we do have a quick question for all of you. Are you interested in learning more about MobileCause? Let me go ahead and open up this poll here. And we'll just give this a few seconds so get your answers in really quickly. All right, numbers are coming in. All right, it looks like it is slowing down, so we'll go ahead and close that poll out. And with that, it is now time for our live Q&A, where we will answer some very important questions that you've sent us about your fundraising event plan. So please feel free to submit any other questions as we go along. I've got a first couple of questions here are actually for both Danielle and Sarah. So the first question is from Eris. And the question is on virtual fundraising events, and it's what challenges did you first face in switching from in-person to virtual? Danielle?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest challenges with the switch was for us, I had to learn so much more technology than I think I was accounting for. And it was just a huge learning curve for myself and my team. And then trying to explain that to our clients and how it works. So it was a really big uphill battle learning. And then once we finally got our grasp on, what live streaming looks like, what virtual interaction looked like, how that works, and how to create a seamless experience online, then things started to level out for us. But yeah, I think just that whole transition was just a big learning experience.
Okay, great. Sarah, what about you? What did you see?
I would definitely relate to having to learn a lot of different software and technology, and having to choose between whether we're going to stream on Facebook or with Zoom or Vimeo Live. There was a lot of new technology and terms to use. But I think one of the other challenges is just kind of learning your sweet spot for things like the timing. So how long is your audience going to be interested for? How long should you run this event? What kind of things should you do? Is it just a conversation with your CEO, or are you going to have performances? And I think a lot of that is just learning as you go and polling your audience and just really getting a feel for who your donors and supporters are. But I think that definitely pays off in the long run, so it's worth some of the growing pains.
Okay, great. All right, so the second question comes from Carly, and again for both of you. And the question is, I understand that net revenue was often higher with the virtual events, and that's great. But did you find that sponsors were hesitant to support those virtual events, or would instead they sponsor like at a lower level or a lower amount because of less fulfillment? Danielle?
Yeah, so what we actually found, and the advice I've been giving to all of our nonprofits, is when it comes to sponsoring a virtual event, their benefit package should not be less than. It's actually worth almost double. And the reason I say that is because the opportunity for a sponsor during a virtual event is so much more of a high value opportunity for them that it's worth a lot more. So for example, at your live event, maybe we only have 500 people, but online we had 1,000. That just became double the exposure. And so we were able to provide more for our sponsors, like a 30-second commercial in our program versus just putting their name in a program. So for us, we really enhanced our sponsor benefits. And when they started to see examples of how that translated in the virtual event space, our sponsors loved it. They loved everything. And so my advice is a sponsorship for a virtual event is never worth less. If anything, you're going to keep the same value as a live event, if not increase that exposure.
All right, great. Sarah, do you have anything to add to that?
No, I definitely agree. In helping set up many different sponsorship forms, I did not see people lowering their ask for sponsors. And again, they were increasing the benefits of what their sponsors were getting, and they were still seeing sponsors. So if you do have anyone who's hesitant, who you've worked with before, I would just, try to find, a similar nonprofit who's held a similar type of event, virtual event, and kind of show them what they can get through, the example of, watching another nonprofit's event and seeing all that sponsorship stuff that their sponsors are listed and seeing how they're promoted. I think sometimes they just need to see an example to get back on board, but for the most part, I didn't see any hesitation.
All right, great. Well, it is the top of the hour, so we've come to the conclusion of our question and answer. So before we leave, if you are interested in discovering how MobileCause can help maximize your fundraising efforts, please fill out our post-webinar survey or request a demo for more about our special July offer. Thank you again for attending today, and best of luck in planning and hosting your next best fundraising event. Goodbye for now, and we'll see you again at next month's live webinar.